Capricorn, have you ever noticed that when things begin to go wrong in your life, they don't just crumble all at once? No. They unravel quietly, slowly, in pairs. One person drains your energy. The other rewrites the story. One makes you feel responsible. The other convinces you it's all your fault. And before you even realize what's happening, you're carrying guilt that isn't yours, solving problems you didn't create, and doubting instincts that were right all along. This is no coincidence. This is a pattern. A pattern that shows up in the lives of Capricorns more than any other sign. Why? Because your strength is structure. And when manipulators want to build their illusions, they need someone stable, someone grounded, someone who won't run when things get difficult. They need you, Capricorn. But they don't love you for who you are. They use your strength to stabilize their chaos. They use your loyalty to rewrite their failures. They use your silence as a shield for their lies. And often, they do it in pairs. One plays the victim. The other plays your savior. One leaks, one controls. One pretends to need you, the other pretends to protect you from the very person they've partnered with. This isn't just about manipulation. It's about covert sabotage. It's about energy theft disguised as love. And it's about how KT, the most resilient sign in the zodiac, ends up exhausted, uncertain, and trapped in a story that never belonged to them. But tonight, that story changes. Because in this video, we're going to do what few ever do. We're going to name the pattern, track the players, and reveal the strategy all before they see it coming. We'll decode how these two people operate. We'll walk through real-life examples in family, in work, in love, where this pattern hides in plain sight. We'll translate archetypes like the High Priestess and the Tower not into tarot, but into observable behavior and emotional reactions you've probably already experienced. And most importantly, we'll give you the words, the rituals, and the boundaries to break this spell calmly, clearly, and completely. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about recovery. This isn't about proving them wrong. It's about finally protecting your energy before it's gone. So stay with me until the very end. Because once you see the pattern, it cannot control you again. And once you reclaim your power, the structure of your life will shift, permanently. Part 1, The Hidden Alliance, How Two People Work in Tandem. They never arrive, obviously. That's the first thing you need to understand. These two people who work against you, they don't storm in. They slip in. Often through kindness, through timing, through the appearance of need, or worse, the illusion of loyalty. Capricorn, you are ruled by Saturn, which means you see life through the lens of structure, duty, and earned trust. You value consistency more than charm. You respect discipline more than charisma. And that is what makes you so rare. But ironically, that's also what makes you a target. Because when someone, or worse, a pair of people, wants access to your stability, they know one thing very clearly. They don't need to overpower you. They just need to overload you. And they do this by splitting roles. One becomes the anchor of chaos, someone always in crisis, always needing help, always draining you but never directly attacking. The other becomes the gatekeeper of control, someone who seems more calm, more in your corner, but constantly downplays your concerns, reframes your boundaries, and subtly convinces you to stay patient, be the bigger person, or not rock the boat. You've likely met them before, though you didn't know it at the time. Let's look closer. The emotional leech plus the narrative keeper. These two operate like a shadow alliance. They don't need to speak directly. They only need to keep you suspended between guilt and hope. The emotional leech feeds on your empathy. They always have a new problem. Something always goes wrong. They say things like, "I didn't want to bother you, but you're the only one I can count on. I know you're busy, but I thought you'd understand." The narrative keeper, on the other hand, manages the story behind your back. They act as the translator between you and the leech. They're not trying to hurt you, they're just going through a lot. You might have come off a little harsh. Maybe give it time. One takes your energy, the other takes your voice. And together, they reshape your reality until you're no longer sure what's fair, what's yours to fix, or what version of you they've told others about. This alliance is especially dangerous to Capricorn because it feeds on your greatest trait, your dependability. They know you don't walk away easily. They know you'd rather fix a system than abandon it. They know your silence is not weakness, it's calculation. But they count on you staying silent just long enough for the damage to be done. They don't always know they're doing it. Here's the most chilling part. These two people might not be consciously conspiring. One may truly be wounded. The other may truly believe they're helping. But the pattern doesn't care about their awareness. The damage is the same. One demands. One deflects. One drains. One distorts. And you, the Capricorn, become the structural support beam for their dysfunction. You lose energy. You lose time. And worst of all, you lose clarity. The subtle shifts to watch for. The hidden alliance always creates the same symptoms. You find yourself explaining your actions more than usual. You feel guilt even when you've done nothing wrong. You start checking your tone, your words, your reactions, not out of respect, but out of fear of being misinterpreted. You find yourself constantly anticipating emotional fallout from one or both people. And deep down, you keep thinking, if I just do a little more, maybe this will settle. But it doesn't settle, Capricorn. Because it was never meant to. These two people may not want to destroy you, but they want to keep you contained. Contained in their comfort zone. Contained in their story. Contained in a role you never auditioned for, but somehow got cast in anyway. The first step, naming the pattern. Before we dive into the specific roles they take in your workplace, family, and love life, I want you to do something brave right now. Ask yourself this question. In the last year, who have I given my energy to consistently but received very little clarity, peace, or truth in return? Not drama. Not attention. Not emotional crumbs. I mean real clarity. I mean actual peace. Write down the first two names that come up. Don't second guess it. Your body already knows. Because your Capricorn instincts are rarely wrong. They're just silenced. By guilt. By conditioning. By fear of conflict. But no more. In the next part, we'll explore exactly why Capricorn is the sign most vulnerable to this pattern and why breaking it isn't just survival. It's your initiation into higher authority. Life Lesson, Part 1. Capricorn, strength without clarity becomes a trap. When you give endlessly without question, others learn not your kindness, but your limits. The truth is, you were never meant to be the scaffolding for someone else's weakness. You were meant to be the architect of your own peace. Part 2. Why Capricorn? The soul that's easy to exploit. Capricorn, you are the sign of the builder, the stabilizer, the bearer of burdens no one else will carry. And that's not poetic fluff, that's cosmic design. From the moment you entered this world, you were marked by Saturn, the great taskmaster. This doesn't mean your life was destined for pain. But it does mean you were given a particular kind of wiring, one that sees chaos and responds with structure, one that sees failure and responds with effort, one that sees someone else's falling apart and immediately steps in to hold it all together. And while that makes you the strongest foundation anyone could ask for, it also makes you a magnet for manipulation. Because when someone wants to avoid responsibility, they seek out someone who won't let things fall apart. And who is better at holding it together than you? The burden of being the reliable one. You became the go-to, the fixer, the stabilizer. But here's the cruel twist. The more reliable you are, the more invisible your needs become. People stop asking how you feel. They stop checking in. Because your strength has become the very reason they believe you don't need support. And the dangerous part? You start believing it, too. You push through exhaustion. You stay silent to keep the peace. You carry burdens in rooms full of people and somehow still feel alone. This is how it starts. Not with grand betrayals, but with subtle, quiet assumptions that you'll figure it out. That you'll handle it. That you're strong enough to deal with it. And the moment you show a crack, they say you're too sensitive, too cold, or not like you used to be. What they're really saying is, you've stopped letting them drain you for free. Your boundaries are seen as rejection. This is the heart of why you've been targeted by the pattern we're exposing in this series. To a manipulator, Capricorn's boundaries feel like betrayal. Because when you finally say no, they don't just lose access to your help. They lose access to your silence, to your emotional labor, to your structure, the very thing they've been using to stay afloat. And that's when the pushback begins. That's when the emotional leech plays the victim harder. That's when the narrative keeper starts twisting your character. That's when you're told, "You've changed. You're being harsh. This isn't like you." But here's what they never tell you. You've changed because you finally saw the truth. And the truth demands action. The generational programming you didn't choose. Now let's go deeper. Capricorn, much of what you've tolerated wasn't born in you, it was passed to you. If you look back at your childhood, your family patterns, your earliest environments, you'll likely find the seeds of this cycle. Perhaps you were the responsible one in a house of chaos. Maybe you were praised only when you were helpful, not when you were hurting. Maybe love was given in exchange for performance, not presence. These patterns don't just shape personality. They hardwire your nervous system to believe that love must be earned, that belonging is conditional, and that your worth is tied to your usefulness. And so, as an adult, you attract people who reinforce the contract you never signed but always lived by. I am only valuable when I am needed. That is why the pattern repeats. That is why, time after time, the same two kinds of people find you, the chaotic one and the controlling one, because deep inside, you've been trained to think their need is your purpose. But Capricorn, it's not. Your true purpose isn't to be needed, it's to be whole. There is nothing noble about burning out in silence. There is nothing sacred about carrying others through storms they created while pretending the weight doesn't hurt. There is wisdom in discernment. There is power in letting people fall when they refuse to stand. And there is deep, spiritual healing in recognizing that being responsible for others is not the same as being responsible for yourself. This is where your reclamation begins. Not in confrontation, not in revenge, but in the quiet, grounded truth. You were never meant to prove your worth through exhaustion. You were meant to stand full, clear, and unshakable, even if it means disappointing the ones who once depended on your silence. Because that silence is no longer your offering. Your truth is. And once you speak it, everything begins to change. Life Lesson, Part 2. Capricorn, you were taught that love comes through sacrifice. But true love, divine love, doesn't demand you disappear. You were not born to be useful. You were born to be whole. And anyone who needs you broken to feel okay, was never aligned with your highest path. Part 3. Recognizing the signs, what they say, what you feel. Capricorn, it always starts quietly. Not with a blowout. Not with betrayal. But with small shifts, subtle words, changed tones, and tiny rewrites of the truth. If you're not paying close attention, you won't see it. But you will feel it in your body, in your breath, in your sleep, in the way your inner voice starts second-guessing itself. Because that's how the hidden alliance works. They don't control you by force. They do it by making you doubt your own signals. Let's walk through what it actually sounds like in real life, so you can stop blaming yourself and start seeing the pattern for what it is. Phrases the emotional leech will use. This is the person who always has a problem, always needs help, always makes you feel like you're abandoning them if you take space. They don't scream. They plead. They say things like, "I just thought you, of all people, would understand. I guess I was wrong to think you'd be there for me like before. No one else has time for me, I thought I mattered more to you." And the worst part? They'll say these things right after you set a healthy boundary. You say, "I can't talk tonight, I need rest." They respond with, "Forget it, I won't bother you anymore." They turn your self-care into a personal rejection. And then make you question if maybe, just maybe, you were too harsh. Phrases the narrative keeper will use. This is the person who positions themselves as the reasonable one, the in-between, the helper who sees both sides. They seem calm, rational, but their real role is to slow down your clarity, to keep you tolerating just a little longer. They say things like, "Maybe you misunderstood them. They're just going through something right now. You're usually so patient, don't let this throw you off." Their voice isn't aggressive. It's sweet, soft, almost spiritual. But it's also gaslighting in disguise. Because it doesn't matter what the other person is going through. It matters what you're going through. And what you're going through is a slow emotional erosion while being told it's all in your head. How your body responds before your mind does. Capricorn, your mind is strong. You rationalize pain better than most. You make excuses for others. You take the long view. You believe in loyalty and the benefit of the doubt. But your body always knows first. Pay attention to that sudden tiredness after a conversation. The shallow breath when a certain name appears on your screen. The tightening in your chest before a favor is asked. The insomnia after giving in again. The guilt that shows up before you even say no. These are not coincidences. They are signals, alarms, truths trying to surface. You are not being dramatic. You are not being too sensitive. You are not imagining things. You are awakening. You'll notice the shifts in your behavior, too. After enough time with this hidden alliance around you, your own behavior begins to change. You apologize even when you're not sure what you did. Rehearse conversations in your head before you speak. Avoid asking for help because you don't want to be a burden. Start to censor your wins because you're scared they'll downplay them. Walk away from conversations tired, not heard. And this isn't just stress. This is the result of being emotionally overdrawn and still expected to serve. But Capricorn, you were not born to operate in the red. You were born to invest in what is solid, sacred, and real. Not in patterns that deplete you to benefit others. The first internal shift is this: permission to believe yourself. You are allowed to name what feels wrong even when it's subtle. You are allowed to feel unsafe around people who've never raised their voice. You are allowed to leave situations that make you feel guilty, even if no one yelled at you. Because Capricorn, your intuition is not loud, but it is always precise. And the moment you trust it again, you'll see these people clearly, not as confusing, not as wounded, but as strategic energy thieves. Some of them may not know they're doing it. But that doesn't change the effect. And it doesn't change your right to walk away. Life Lesson, Part 3. Capricorn, the people who make you feel guilty for having needs were never trying to love you. They were trying to own you. And once you reclaim your right to feel, to say no, and to leave without explanation, they lose access to the story they built using your silence. Part 4, Case Study, The Workplace Triangle. Capricorn, if there's one place your energy is most exploited without thanks, it's the workplace. You show up. You over-deliver. You don't complain. And because of that, you become the backbone of your team, the person who quietly holds the structure together. But the truth is, in many workplaces, the most dependable person becomes the easiest one to overlook, overuse, and override. Let's walk into one of the most common manipulative configurations Capricorn finds themselves trapped in. The workplace triangle. Characters in the triangle. You, the Capricorn, focused, loyal, structured. You want results, not drama. You communicate clearly, meet deadlines, and fix problems silently. The disruptor, a coworker who seems disorganized, but charming. They miss deadlines, deflect responsibility, and casually throw your name into explanations when things go wrong. They're never directly malicious, just always misunderstood. The narrative manager, a boss or higher-up who appears rational, diplomatic. But instead of seeking truth, they seek optics. Their main goal isn't fairness, it's control. They downplay your concerns, talk about team cohesion, and quietly reward the disruptor for trying. What it looks like in real life. Monday, 9:02 a.m. You've just finished cleaning up a deliverable that was supposed to be shared responsibility, but once again, the disruptor submitted half-done work late Sunday night. You polish the rest because your name is on the project too. During the team meeting, the boss says, "Great work on this, I know last-minute edits were needed. Appreciate the collaboration from both of you." You blink. The disruptor smirks. The room moves on. After the meeting, you mention the imbalance to your manager. Their response: "Let's not focus on blame. We all contribute in different ways. Maybe they're just more creative and you're more structured." That's what makes the team dynamic work. Dynamic. You're not in a partnership. You're in a cleanup crew. But now, if you push back harder, you're the problem. Welcome to the triangle. How the two-way manipulation works. The disruptor plays innocent. Their messes look like accidents. They didn't know the format, assumed you had it, or thought the deadline was flexible. The narrative manager reframes your exhaustion as inflexibility. If you express concern too directly, they'll say things like, "Don't be so rigid. Let's be solution-focused. We don't want drama." Suddenly, you're not a high performer. You're too intense. You're not a team player. This is emotional role inversion, a tactic used to shame clarity and reward chaos disguised as creativity. And Capricorn, you fall into this trap more often than you realize because your identity is tied to being effective, not visible. You don't need applause. You need progress. But in a toxic triangle, progress becomes invisible and your silence becomes ammunition. Why Capricorn stays too long? Because you were raised, spiritually or literally, to believe that if something's broken, you fix it. You think, if I just work harder, they'll see. If I stay consistent, they'll understand. If I let it go, maybe it'll balance out next time. But it doesn't balance. Because it's not a system. It's a setup. You're being used as a stabilizer, not recognized as a contributor. And the worst part, you're still the one carrying the weight while the others control the narrative. How to break the triangle without losing yourself. Here's the hard truth, Capricorn. Excellence is not enough in a system built on perception. You need evidence. You need language. You need boundaries. Start here. Document everything. Quietly. Professionally. Keep track of what you do, what was delegated, what was delivered, and by whom. Save emails. Timestamp updates. Use neutral clarity. When presenting facts, don't defend. Just state. Example. For clarity, here's the version I submitted on Tuesday and the changes made Friday. Let me know if additional edits are needed. Avoid emotional appeals. Don't say I feel taken advantage of. Say, to stay on track, I'll need clarity on who owns this task going forward. Stop overcompensating. Let late work be seen. Let the cracks appear. You're not here to protect dysfunction. You're here to perform, not parent. When they push back, they might say you're changing. They might say you're cold now. They might even try to isolate you socially. Let them. Because the minute they can no longer rely on your invisible labor, the pattern has no oxygen left. And that is when the structure begins to crumble. Not you. Them. Life Lesson, Part 4. Capricorn, excellence without visibility is exploitation. And loyalty without boundaries is servitude. You were not placed here to carry broken systems, you were placed here to reveal them. If they twist your clarity into a threat, let that be the proof that your silence was their strategy all along. Part 5. Case Study. Family, Friends and the Guilt Trap. Capricorn, some betrayals don't arrive in boardrooms or email chains. They arrive in kitchens, in car rides, in group chats labeled family or the originals. They wear the face of your oldest cousin, your childhood friend, your parent. And instead of undermining you with lies or manipulation, they use something much more effective, guilt wrapped in love. This is the second arena where the hidden alliance thrives, not at work, but in intimate loyalty-based relationships. And once again, the pattern shows up as two. One person always seems to need help, rescue, or defending. The other becomes the translator, the one who smooths things over, explains their behavior, and pressures you to just let it go. Together, they form the guilt trap. And for Capricorn, who is already wired to protect and preserve, this is where your energy gets siphoned in the name of family, tradition, or being a good friend. The helper and the defender dynamic. Let's look at how this actually plays out. Scenario: you have a sibling, cousin, or longtime friend who is always in crisis. They borrow money, ask for rides, vent about their latest emergency, and every time they make a mistake, you're the one called to clean it up. That's the helper trap. But the real manipulation sets in when another person, often a parent, aunt, or mutual friend steps in and says, "They just need you right now. Don't be cold." You know they look up to you. You're the only one they listen to. This person becomes the defender of the disruption. Not because they're malicious, but because they're invested in keeping the peace. And you, Capricorn, are their emotional glue. When you try to step back, here's where it hurts. When you finally say, "I can't give you money this time. I'm not available this weekend. This pattern is affecting my mental health." What happens? Suddenly, you're the selfish one. The helper says, "Wow, after everything I've done for you, I just didn't expect this from you." The defender says, "Maybe you could have said it differently. They're just sensitive. Could you try again?" And just like that, the guilt trap tightens. You're now responsible not only for your own boundaries, but for everyone else's feelings about them. The cost of being the strong one. Let's be clear. Capricorn often becomes the emotional bank account for a family or friendship group. You're the stable one. The one with perspective. The one who's doing okay. So when someone else spirals, they come to you not for advice, but for repair. And here's the danger. Over time, you begin to believe that your role is to absorb. You absorb the emotion. You absorb the dysfunction. You absorb the silence. And in doing so, you lose the space to feel your own life. Your time is never yours. Your peace is always interrupted. And your loyalty is rewarded with obligation. How to identify the guilt trap before it consumes you. Ask yourself, when I say no, who makes me feel guilty the fastest? Who consistently needs rescuing but never reflects on their patterns? Who defends them when I finally speak up? Who praises my strength but never protects my boundaries? If the same two names come up, you've found your pattern. It doesn't mean they're evil. It means they've learned how to access your compassion without accountability. And Capricorn, you are not here to be everyone's emotional retirement plan. How to begin reclaiming yourself. State your boundary once, without over-explaining. Example, "I'm not able to help with that this month." No apology. No explanation. Redirect the responsibility. "That sounds hard, who else have you asked?" Refuse triangulation. Please speak to them directly, I'm not in the middle. Expect pushback. Stay silent. Let the discomfort rise. It's not your job to smooth it. Notice who respects your silence and who punishes it. The second group is your answer. The truth they don't want you to know. When you stop giving freely, they find someone else. And that hurts until you realize. Their loyalty wasn't love. It was convenience. But you, Capricorn, are not here to be convenient. You are here to be whole. You deserve relationships that nourish, not negotiate your value. You deserve love that honors your truth, not guilt that distorts it. Life Lesson, Part 5. Capricorn, when love requires guilt, it is no longer love, it is control. You were never born to carry the emotions others refuse to feel. You were born to break the cycle, even if it means being misunderstood by the very people who raised you to be strong. Part 6, Case Study, Love and Emotional Theft. Capricorn, this part will be the hardest to hear. Because when betrayal comes from the person you love and is quietly endorsed by someone you trust, the damage doesn't just wound you. It rewires you. This is the most personal triangle of all. One person you're emotionally intimate with. One person who seems to understand you. But both are draining you. They don't raise their voice. They don't threaten to leave. They simply keep reframing reality until you forget what truth feels like. And the cost? You begin to love with fear, to speak with caution, to question your instincts, to defend your pain to the very people who caused it. This is not love. This is emotional theft disguised as connection. The two roles, the lover and the confidant. The lover. This person gives affection in waves. When they want something, they're present, tender, attentive. When they don't, they withdraw, criticize, or disappear. But here's the catch, they always come back just enough to reset your hope. They say things like, "You're overthinking again. I never said that, don't twist my words. I just need space, why are you so reactive?" You begin to feel like the unstable one. You begin to work for their warmth. You stop setting boundaries because their withdrawal becomes your punishment. The confidant. This is often a mutual friend, a sibling, or someone close to your partner, but who claims to care about both of you. They say they love you. They're just not great at showing it. You're stronger than them, you just have to lead this season. Don't ruin something good over small misunderstandings. They package your pain as drama, your concerns as rigidity, and your patterns of neglect as normal growing pains. They rewrite your instincts as impatience. They rewrite your silence as stubbornness. And in doing so, they help the lover stay unaccountable while you fall deeper into self-blame. The power dynamic behind the scenes. This setup works because it never feels abusive. It feels complicated. It feels like your fault, like you're too much, too guarded, too intense. You stay because of potential, because of memories, because of what you felt in those rare, perfect moments. And you think, maybe I'm too rigid. Maybe they just need more grace. Maybe I'm the problem. But Capricorn, when someone loves you only when it's convenient, and another person explains away your needs as flaws, you're not in a relationship. You're in a system designed to extract your emotional labor while giving you just enough affection to stay. This is how emotional theft operates. Not through violence, but through subtle starvation. You give everything, and still feel undeserving. Signs you're in an emotional theft dynamic. You're constantly working on yourself, but they never seem to reflect. You censor your joy, success, or anger to avoid triggering them. You confide in a third party more than your partner. You feel lonely inside the relationship, not outside of it. When you express a need, they disappear, or the confidant tells you to calm down. You're exhausted, but you don't know how to justify leaving. The truth, this was never your role to play. You are not here to fix someone's emotional immaturity. Be the grounded one in a relationship that lacks mutual effort. Accept almost love as your spiritual reward for patience. Capricorn, your heart is deep, but it's not bottomless. When you give love with structure, intention, and presence, you deserve to receive the same frequency in return. Anything less isn't love. It's emotional vampirism. And anyone who asks you to prove your loyalty by sacrificing your peace isn't a partner. They're a user. How to end the loop without destroying yourself. 1. Stop justifying your pain to people who benefit from your confusion. If you have to explain why something hurts more than twice, they're not listening. 2. Speak directly once. Then step back. Say, this pattern is hurting me. If it continues, I will choose distance. Then honor it. 3. Block triangulation, especially with the confidant. Tell them, if you care about me, please don't interpret my feelings for someone else. Let me speak for myself. 4. Rebuild safety in solitude. Silence the phone. Reclaim your rituals. Let clarity come through the quiet. 5. Mourn the illusion. Not every heartbreak is about who they were. Some are about who you hoped they'd become. You deserve a love that doesn't ask you to dim. Let that be clear. A love that doesn't punish your boundaries, doesn't confuse withdrawal with depth, doesn't need a third party to translate your pain, doesn't disappear when you shine. Capricorn, your love is sacred architecture. It builds, it sustains, it protects. But it's time to stop building altars for people who refuse to bring their full self. Because when you stop proving and start discerning, you will finally make space for the love you actually deserve. Life Lesson, Part 6. Capricorn, real love does not demand that you shrink to be accepted. It does not ask for silence instead of truth. If someone only stays when you doubt yourself, but disappears when you stand tall, they were never loving you. They were surviving through you. Part 7, Spiritual Origins, the ancestral burden you carry. Capricorn, what if I told you that some of the people draining your energy today are not the root of your pain? They are simply the echoes. Echoes of an agreement made long before you were born. You see, there are patterns we inherit not through genetics, but through generational energy. Roles that pass down silently. Contracts unspoken. Rules no one ever taught you directly, but that you began obeying instinctively. And no zodiac sign absorbs ancestral burden more silently, more completely than Capricorn. Because your soul came into this life with Saturn as its teacher. And Saturn doesn't play small. It teaches through weight, through responsibility, through time. You weren't just born into a family. You were born into a mission. But here's the twist. That mission may no longer be yours to carry. The unseen roles passed through your lineage. In almost every Capricorn's life, if you look closely, you'll find a grandparent who sacrificed everything but never felt seen. A mother who held the family together by suppressing her voice. A father who provided, but emotionally disappeared. An older sibling who raised the younger ones. An uncle who numbed the pressure through addiction. A matriarch who preached strength but never knew rest. And beneath it all, a silent message passed down to you. Don't fall apart. Hold it together for everyone. Don't ask for help. Make sure they're okay even if you're not. No one said it. But you felt it. In the way they looked at you. In the praise you got for being strong, quiet, mature beyond your years. And slowly, you became the one who holds. Even when it hurts. Even when no one asks. Even when no one sees. This isn't just personal, it's cosmic. Capricorn is the 10th sign, the summit. You are the climber, the builder of legacies, the guardian of long-term structure. But when your soul enters this archetype, it often does so to finish what others could not. You inherit the unresolved, the debts unspoken, the shame no one dared name, the responsibilities your ancestors couldn't resolve. You absorb the weight and try to turn it into form, into function, into foundation. That's why even as a child, you may have felt older than your years. Like you were born tired. Like your life was already in motion before you could choose. And in many ways, it was. Because the story of your lineage was already running. And you were born into the chapter meant to break the cycle. How the hidden alliance uses this against you. Here's the painful part. The two people draining you today, the emotional leech and the narrative keeper, don't just see your strength. They sense your inherited guilt. They feel the weight you carry. And they manipulate it. They know you'll hesitate to walk away. They know you'll feel responsible for others' healing. They know how deeply you fear becoming the one who abandons because you saw what abandonment did to your family line. So they weaponize your compassion. They use your lineage against you. And because this wounding runs so deep, you don't just feel manipulated. You feel obligated. But Capricorn, you do not owe your loyalty to cycles that destroy you. You are here to end what they endured, not to repeat it. How to identify your inherited role. Ask yourself, what am I always expected to be? When did I first feel responsible for someone else's happiness? Whose pain have I carried in silence? When did I learn that breaking a pattern would make me the bad one? Now go deeper. Who in your family never got to rest? Who never got to speak? Who was shamed for needing help? Who does your current pain remind you of? Because once you see the pattern, you can start to exit it. Not with anger, but with ceremony, with reverence, with the quiet, spiritual defiance of a Capricorn who says, "This ends with me lovingly, clearly, and completely." Spiritual exercise, releasing the contract. 1. Write down the invisible job you've carried. I've been the one who _______. 2. Then write the truth. But that was never mine to carry. It was passed to me through love, survival, fear. I now return it with gratitude and choose my own path. 3. Burn it. Breathe. Feel the weight begin to lift. You are not betraying your ancestors. You are fulfilling what they could not, the courage to end the loop. You are the first to say enough. Capricorn, you are not weak for laying the burden down. You are wise. You are not heartless for walking away from inherited roles. You are healing the heart of your lineage. You are not selfish for saying, "I will not carry this anymore." You are the doorway. The one who stops the wound from traveling forward. And begins a new legacy not of sacrifice, but of conscious choice. Life Lesson, Part 7. Capricorn, you were not born to finish what broke others. You were born to honor it and release it. You are not here to carry the pain of your lineage. You are here to alchemize it into power and then walk away, free. Part 8. Boundaries are your spiritual weapon. Capricorn, by now, you've seen the pattern. The two people. The draining. The rewriting. The silence that protects them more than it protects you. But there's one shift, one act, that changes everything. And it's not confrontation. It's not revenge. It's not even cutting people off. It's this, a boundary. Not just a rule. Not just a wall. But a spiritual declaration. I am no longer available for dynamics that diminish me. This is the point in your story where everything turns. Not because you fight harder, but because you no longer volunteer your energy where it's not respected. Why Capricorn struggles to set boundaries. You'd think someone as strong as Capricorn would find boundaries easy. But it's the opposite. Because your strength isn't in pushing people away. It's in holding things together. And because of that, you've learned to absorb instead of express. Stay instead of speak. Fix instead of walk. You tell yourself, I don't want to make things worse. They don't mean harm. Maybe I'm just overreacting. But let's be honest. You've already endured more than most would. And that little voice telling you to stay silent, that's not compassion. That's conditioning. The truth, boundaries are not aggression, they are clarity. Let's shift your mindset right now. A boundary is not a rejection of others. It is an honoring of yourself. It says, this is how I allow myself to be treated. This is where my energy ends and yours begins. This is where my silence stops protecting dysfunction. When you set a boundary, you are not being cruel. You are being clear. And clarity, Capricorn, is what ends the cycle. The 3 most powerful boundaries you can set right now. 1. The energetic boundary. This is where you reclaim your emotional bandwidth. Say, I don't have the capacity for this right now. That's it. No explanation. No guilt. Why it works. It removes the burden of justification. It tells your nervous system, we don't owe constant access to anyone. 2. The time boundary. This is where you stop emergency access to your schedule. Say, I'm not available today. You'll need to find another option. Why it works. It teaches others that you are not their first responder, unless it's mutual. 3. The narrative boundary. This is the most spiritual of all because it reclaims your story. Say, please don't speak for me. If someone has feedback about me, they can come directly to me. Why it works. It ends triangulation. It dissolves the power of the narrative keeper. What to expect when you set boundaries. They won't all like it. Some will. Accuse you of changing. Call you cold. Pull away. Try to guilt you. Claim you're being dramatic or overreacting. That's okay. Let them show you who they are. Boundaries don't push away the wrong people. They reveal them. You're not doing this to punish. You're doing this to protect and evolve. And Capricorn, your evolution doesn't need permission. It needs space. When you feel guilty, remember this. Guilt is not always a sign you've done something wrong. Sometimes guilt is just the echo of an old role dying. An old version of you that survived by overgiving, overfixing, overfunctioning. That version did its job. It got you here. But now, it's time for a new agreement. Boundary is a love language to yourself. Capricorn, you've given loyalty to people who never gave you safety. You've offered silence to people who weaponized your strength. You've stayed in dynamics that chipped away at your light, piece by piece, all in the name of being the stable one. But now, you speak. You draw the line. And you stop apologizing for needing peace. Because the people who truly love you, they will adapt. They will listen. And if they don't, they were never meant for this next chapter. Life Lesson, Part 8. Capricorn, a boundary is not a wall between you and others. It is a door you choose who to open for and when. And if someone only loved you when you had no lines, they weren't loving you. They were using your silence as permission. Part 9. The calm after confrontation. What happens next? Capricorn, no one talks enough about what happens after you set the boundary. After the conversation. After the text you never thought you'd send. After the silence that used to terrify you finally arrives. It's not always relief. Not right away. In fact, the first thing many Capricorns feel after reclaiming their power is not peace. It's emptiness. Because when you remove two people who fed off your structure, you don't just remove manipulation. You remove the pattern that gave your identity a role. And what's left is space. But don't mistake space for loneliness. Don't confuse silence with failure. What you're feeling is the detox of your nervous system. Adjusting to a life where your energy is no longer currency for other people's chaos. You may feel disoriented, like you're not sure who you are without the weight. Guilty, even though you know you did the right thing. Isolated, because they've gone silent or started whisper campaigns. Anxious, waiting for retaliation that may never come. Empty, because your calendar, inbox, or phone feels quiet. This is normal. You're not weak. You're healing. And healing, at first, often feels like nothing at all. Because when you've lived in survival mode, calm can feel like danger. But it's not. It's your life returning to you. Their reactions are not your responsibility. After you cut the cord or hold the line, they may try to guilt you into re-engaging. Accuse you of being cold, ungrateful, or heartless. Spread doubt among mutual connections. Pretend nothing happened and test your boundary again. Fall silent to provoke your worry. Let them. Your job is no longer to manage their emotions. Your job is to nurture your own clarity. The silence that follows confrontation is not a punishment. It's a mirror. And if they cannot face their own reflection, they'll try to distort yours. Do not hand them the brush. How to stay centered after the shift. 1. Anchor into ritual, not reaction. Wake up at the same time. Eat nourishing meals. Move your body. Touch water. Stability outside rebuilds stability within. 2. Speak only to safe, neutral people. No justifying. No rehashing with mutuals. Let your energy settle. 3. Do not respond to provocation. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. Remember, responding does not equal resolving. 4. Journal what you feel without editing. You'll be tempted to dismiss your pain. Don't. Write what hurts. Write what feels free. Let both exist. 5. Declare what replaces the old pattern. Say out loud, I release being the container for other people's chaos. I now become the sanctuary for my own peace. The rebuild starts here. Capricorn, you may be tempted to go back. Not because you miss the pain, but because pain was familiar, predictable, structured. At least you knew what to expect. But that was a false sense of control, one built on sacrifice. Now, you get to build something real. It won't feel like a roar at first. It will feel like a whisper, a quiet knowing that you no longer owe your peace to other people's comfort. And from that whisper comes power. Life Lesson, Part 9. Capricorn, healing won't always feel heroic. Sometimes it feels like silence, softness, space. But that stillness is not a void, it is the soil where your next life takes root. Let it grow without rushing to fill it. Let the quiet be sacred. Part 10. Your inner sanctuary, rebuilding your peace. Capricorn, now that you've stepped away from the chaos, now that the noise has quieted, the pressure has lifted, and the weight no longer lives on your shoulders, there's a question waiting for you in the silence. Now that you're no longer surviving, how will you begin to live? This is the part most people skip. They talk about breaking free. They talk about setting boundaries. But they rarely speak about what comes after freedom. Reconstruction. Rebirth. Sanctuary. Because you can't just remove the old structure. You must build something new to hold your peace. The truth. Your peace needs protection, too. Ma kt la mt kung hoang o ka ku truck. Kong ko nntng, bien kong cm tijn tone. Kong ko lch trin, Bien Kong Cm Thy Ko Nhhng. So after you've let go of toxic dynamics, you must now create a new rhythm, one that holds your power without draining it. Peace isn't passive, it's sacred architecture, and it's time to build yours from the inside out. The 5 pillars of your inner sanctuary. 1. Time that belongs only to you. Designate 1 hour a day not for productivity, not for people-pleasing, but for being. This is your sacred space to breathe, reflect, or simply exist. Even if the world is rushing, your inner world does not have to. 2. A yes that comes from joy, not obligation. Before agreeing to anything, pause and ask, do I want this, or do I feel responsible for it? Let your yes be whole, or let it be no. 3. An environment that reflects your truth. Clean your space. Light a candle. Move furniture. Burn a letter. Add a photo that reminds you of who you were before they drained you. Your outer world should now mirror your inner clarity. 4. Words that nourish, not deplete. Speak gently to yourself. Catch the inner voice that says I should be doing more. Replace it with, I am doing enough. I am allowed to rest. Rest is not the reward for healing. Rest is the healing. 5. People who don't need to be convinced. Surround yourself with those who don't ask you to shrink. Don't interrupt your silence. Don't confuse your strength with emotional labor owed. They are rare, but they exist. And when you meet them, you'll feel it. Peace does not ask for performance. Creating a new structure for your energy. Capricorn, structure is your soul's comfort zone. But from now on, let it serve you, not others. You don't need to build castles for people who only wanted a throne. Now, you build something different. A sanctuary with firm doors, high ceilings, and sacred silence. A life with space to feel, before being useful. A rhythm that includes rest as often as it includes responsibility. You're not becoming less structured. You're becoming more intentional. And intention is the new definition of power. Let this be your new agreement. I no longer offer access to people who treat my peace like a pause button for their chaos. I honor my energy as a resource, not a currency. And I protect my peace not because I'm scared, but because I've healed. Life Lesson, Part 10. Capricorn, peace is not what's left after the storm, it's what you choose to build when you realize you were never meant to live in the storm at all. Your sanctuary is not selfish. It's sacred. And you never need to explain it to anyone who cannot hear the quiet. Conclusion, your final lesson, Capricorn's sacred power. Capricorn, if you've made it here, through the revelations, through the patterns, through the grief of letting go, then you already know. This wasn't just about 2 people. It was about you. About your silence, your strength, your willingness to carry what was never yours. Your ability to function even when the weight broke your spirit. And now, your decision to stop. Because that's what this truly is. Not just an awakening, but a decision. A sacred, conscious, irreversible choice. I will no longer participate in dynamics that ask me to betray myself. You are no longer the vessel for other people's avoidance. You are no longer the safety net for the unaccountable. You are no longer the quiet one in the room who just handles it. You are the architect of your new life. And your blueprint begins now. Capricorn's true power was never just endurance. Yes, you can endure, but you were never meant to only endure. You were meant to discern, to define, to declare. Your true power is not that you can take it. It's that you can end it with clarity, compassion, and command. That you can build a new cycle. That you can write a new contract. That you can choose to live by alignment, not obligation. Remember this, when the guilt tries to return. You are not cold for saying no. You are not cruel for choosing distance. You are not selfish for asking for peace. And you are not weak for walking away even if they never understand why. Let them misunderstand you. Because their comfort is no longer your responsibility. Your soul is. And your soul is free now. You walk forward alone, but not empty. You may walk away from the 2 people who tried to control your story. But what you walk into is ownership of that story. Your path will now be quieter, cleaner, clearer. You'll begin to see new people. Ones who honor your no as much as your yes. Ones who don't need to be convinced of your worth. Ones who bring peace with them not because they're perfect, but because they've also done the work. You'll know them when you meet them, because they won't ask for parts of you you've already reclaimed. And now, the final lesson. Capricorn, you were never meant to be the strong one for everyone else. You were meant to be the wise one for yourself. True power doesn't roar, it remembers. And when you remember who you are, no one can take your energy without your permission ever again. Call to action. Join the journey. If this message spoke to your heart, if you felt seen in the patterns, if you're ready to reclaim what has always been yours, then don't leave here quietly. Subscribe to Zodiac Secrets Revealed because we're not done. There are more truths, more awakenings, more sacred codes hidden in your stars. And this is just one chapter in the story you were born to rewrite. You've been carrying too much for too long. Now let your wisdom carry you forward. Until next time, Capricorn, stand tall, speak clearly, and never hand your silence to anyone who fears your truth.